The Deflated Narcissist. Welcome to today's topic, ladies and gentlemen. I am Coach Tobias Forst, founder of ACHILLES, decade-long recipient of narcissistic abuse, and I've saved myself from it, and I accompany you on your journey to your personal freedom. Today we will talk about the state of the deflated narcissist, or more concretely, the narcissistic collapse. Which factors contribute to a narcissist deflating, collapsing, and what follows, what behaviors and consequences basically enshrine the narcissist. What do you have to expect? What can you expect once a narcissist in your life finds themselves in their own personal narcissistic collapse? So it is about, in a first step, about subjective experiences. All that matters is how the narcissist perceives the following: the lack of attention, the lack of recognition by you, by their surroundings, at work, the social circles, society in general. A lack of respect because maybe after all this time you've managed to pierce the veil and see through them, and you simply cannot muster any longer to hold any type of respect for him or for her. The experience of personal slights. Maybe you set a healthy boundary and put them in their place, be that either in a one-on-one talk or in front of an audience that they so carefully tried to curate over months and years. The experience of humiliations and maybe even debasements. The humiliation maybe at work for the narcissist because of their lack of effort or the bad outcome for the project they were in charge of. And the boss or the colleagues or the boss's boss accusingly points a finger at the narcissist and exposes the lack of progress, the lack of desired and promised results compared to the image that everything's fine, we're on track, we're right on schedule. And these are the moments where reality smashes headlong into the facade of grandiosity, that house of cards, that all of a sudden, with a single light blow, starts to collapse. And all of a sudden, a lot more people than just one find themselves seeing reality of the narcissist and not the oh so carefully curated image that they tried to present and build and curate toward everyone else in their lives. So this has a few consequences for the narcissist. You see, it can all be summed up with the loss of, let's say, financial aspects, the loss of social recognition, or personal standing when it comes to the workplace. And overall, this leads to a drastic reduction in them receiving narcissistic supply. This entails a few consequences, and the first 4 consequences I'm going to elaborate on I took from a psychologist named Craig Malkin. And Mr. Malkin details the following 4 aspects that especially people with a high degree of narcissistic personality style experience as consequences from a drastic reduction of narcissistic supply. And these are the followings: states of fear. States of fear of how to get to that new air supply that is narcissistic supply. Depressions, plural. and the entailing lack of motivation, the personal, individual, freely chosen social isolation that comes with depressions. That doesn't mean that if you have depressions that you're a narcissist, but people in general, including narcissists, can have, of course, depressions, can suffer from depressions. The consumption of substances, sometimes illegal ones, is also something that that can happen on a regular basis for narcissists that lose narcissistic supply in a drastic way. And last but not least, number 4, the thoughts of, or even plans regarding the end of their own lives. I would like to add something that is less drastic but comes from my personal experience, because I would like you to know what to expect. And these are, I think the term is called bouts of rage. Narcissistic rage explosions with a higher intensity than what you're used to, but with increasingly longer intervals. It's basically like a fight for survival, where they try to, with a certain intensity of narcissistic rage towards you, directed at you, try to diminish you, invalidate you, devalue you, so in order for them to regulate their emotions by reducing your emotional well-being so that they can feel slightly more elevated. Because as we know, narcissists require other people for their own personal emotional regulation. So expect this, and in the intervals in between those bouts of narcissistic rage with a high amplitude, you can expect seeing a person that almost appears like a deflated balloon. It used to be this grand and big balloon filled with helium or air. The grandiose ones are certainly the ones with helium, especially when they talk. Anyway, and after those bouts of rage, what happens is the equivalent of the reduction of 90% of the air in there. So they're not even capable of presenting a solid and round surface. It's just a deflated balloon. You can see it in their faces when they appear much more gaunt than usual. The gazes are much more hollow and unfocused. The rings beneath the eyes are darker than usual. There might be even a reduction in physical strength, like when there might be shakes when they try to hold or grab a cup of coffee. Physically, mentally, emotionally, they appear in those intervals in between, according to my experience. This is not by Craig Malkin, this is just my observation. And take it with a grain of salt, ladies and gentlemen. They appear much weaker than usual. So what would I like for you to understand, ladies and gentlemen? I would like you to understand 2 things. Please understand what happens with the narcissist during their personal, individual narcissistic collapse, and understand, number 2, why that happens during the narcissistic collapse in the narcissist in your life. Now, it is very likely that at this point for you in your personal lives, ladies and gentlemen, something peculiar happens yet again. Your empathy starts to knock on your door, and you start to feel sorry for the narcissist and you want to help them. And when, during such a time, during the narcissistic collapse of that person, your empathy tries to come forth and convince you to act in a helpful way toward the narcissist, I would like you to mentally, metaphorically, gently take the hand of your empathy and tell that sweet thing, shh, let's go elsewhere, where you and your presence are actually merited and valued. Now at this point, ladies and gentlemen, it is not uncommon that you might feel a degree of Schadenfreude. You might not be prone to feeling Schadenfreude toward many people in your lives, but right now you might actually be doing that. You might experience that. That does not make you a bad person. That does not make you a bad person. Because you remember everything. And you will continue to remember what they did to you, what they have deprived you of, what corner of lack of personal development they tried to increasingly push you into. And yes, right now they're at their lowest. And you do not feel sorry for them. And you might feel Schadenfreude, yes. Allow yourself that feeling. And before that feeling of Schadenfreude gets worse in the sense that it might turn into revenge, plans and fantasies, before that happens, take that Schadenfreude, throw it in the river and let the river carry it the rest of the way elsewhere. Because I don't know who said it, who was responsible for that quote, but when it comes to revenge, be ready to dig 2 graves. Revenge costs time and especially energy. And energy is the one thing, first and foremost, that we, ladies and gentlemen, try to cultivate and conserve, and then direct it at something constructive for your new chapter, for your new life path, and not towards something destructive. So yes, the brief moment of Schadenfreude, and then let's go somewhere else. To conclude this video, I would like to take you on a journey of a bit of a thought experiment. You're standing at a cave in a mountain. You're still standing in the light on the outside, and you see that Terminator line between the light and the darkness inside. And you're having a mental flashback to back in the day when you stood at this particular cave in the mountain, or a similar one. But you didn't know any better, and you stood there, driven by curiosity and the desire to help. And you know there lives an entity inside that the denizens of the village down in the valley called a vampire. And during that flashback, when you didn't know, you eagerly went into that cave shrouded in darkness, approaching that entity, and that entity demanded your essence and your energy, and in return the promise for a new life. And yes, what a new life you had. That entity didn't divulge on the fine print. You're coming back from that flashback. You're standing there at the Terminator line between the darkness and the light, and you're still standing outside. And there is the same or a different entity in the same cave in the mountain, or a different similar cave in the mountain elsewhere. Right now, by now, you are armed with knowledge. And you know that this entity in there, this vampire, the promises are hollow. The price is only to be borne by you. It is a one-sided deal, and it will only lead to your diminishment until nothing of you remains. And you know that this entity needs you, it requires you, it requires your essence and your energy. And it beckons again. You know it's weak, you know in order to get stronger, it requires you. And now, after all this time with all you have learned, you stand there at the terminator line between the dark cave and the light outside. And you turn your back on the cave. And you walk. And you enjoy the rays of sun in your face. And the pure silence. Be your own hero. Be your own heroine. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.